Hey, uplifters, welcome back. I'm Aranza Savas, and I've spent the last 20 years at the intersection of behavior change research and coaching, helping midlife women do big, brave things. So, we're going to talk today about brain health and about what we can do to keep our brains healthy right now in midlife. Because I don't know about you, but I am super inspired by the 90-year-old I want to become. And I think a lot about what my grandmother was able to do in her mid 90s. And I think about the person I want to grow up to be, because at 51, I am definitely not done growing. And so our guest today, Christine Despres, is going to tell us what we're capable of here, how we can influence our future well being by taking care of our health. So, Christine has spent more than 30 years as a registered nurse, as a director of nursing, overseeing patients in dementia care, hospice, and rehabilitation. She's walked alongside thousands of families through some really difficult moments, and she lost her own mother at 57. She has family members living with dementia, and she's taken everything she knows, both personally and clinically, and she's built what's called the Wellness Navigator, which is a brain health and metabolic wellness coaching practice for women in midlife and beyond. You're going to want to listen to Christine. She is a board certified health and wellness coach, but she's also a certified dementia practitioner and an elite brain health coach. She just moved from Montana to Atlanta to build this business. So she is one of us ladies doing big, brave things, making giant pivots in midlife. And I am so excited to have her with us today. So, Christine, welcome to the Uplifters.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, and what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
So, I want to know everything about brain health. I want to know how it relates to perimenopause and menopause. Like, we're going to get into all of those details. But first, let's get to know each other, like a little first date material here.
Please.
And like I said, you're one of us.
Thank
So
you.
the women in our audience are all out there doing big, brave things or mustering up the courage to do more big, brave things after a lifetime of big, brave things.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for you to just share a little bit about this big pivot moment for you. What changed that made you say, I think I'm going to leave what I've known for so many years, the places, the practice, and go and create something for myself using all of the knowledge and life experience I've acquired?
As a single mom in a very small town in Montana, that director of nursing job was wonderful. It was fulfilling, but surviving COVID and the devastation, and after years of experiencing such, the end of life with families and experiencing dementia, watching people with their struggles and losing their memory and their independence and their quality of life, it takes a little bit of a toll on your well-being.
Mm.
Warmed my heart, made relationships, changed lives, did amazing things, but I wasn't able to change the trajectory of their outcome. So about 10 years ago, I started focusing a little bit on wellness. I knew that if I wanted to stay being a nurse and stay in healthcare, that I had to focus a little more upstream, like 20 or 30 years ahead of the curve, where I could help prevent this from happening to people. I'd seen it with my own mother. Now I'd been practicing it for over 15 years. And honestly, you get a little bit burnt out. I'll be honest. I was on call 24/7. There's CMS regulations, there's paperwork, there's management and travel nursing. It's a lot. So I knew that I was going to transition when I got my daughter off to college. So I started building my wellness business over the years. And getting her off to college a couple of years ago was really the big pivot, because I was able to feel a little bit less like I needed that security of the paycheck and the real job and the, checking all the boxes of a single mom. So when she went to college, she ended up at UGA, which is amazing. And I ended up in Atlanta, and I decided to make that big change and go all in, leaving bedside nursing and focusing on wellness and prevention and women in midlife.
My goodness. I love this story so much on so many levels. And as you were talking, I started to draw a triangle on my paper, because it does feel like there was this real triangulation of possibility here. And I'm working on the chapter right now for my book called What Is This Moment Perfect For? And in that chapter, I really unpack how the systemic changes and the massive overhaul that come with midlife feel really destabilizing. And at the same time, if we look a little deeper, we can find that they're actually ripe with massive possibility. And I hear that played out so powerfully in your story here, because what you're doing is you're saying, okay, what does my energy need physically? There's the emotional, the physical demands of caregiving, of this crazy schedule. And like, what do I need now physically, emotionally? What do I need now financially? Right? I have a little bit more flexibility because there's
Yes.
less of that dependency. And what do I need in terms of my own meaning and purpose and impact? Like, what if I could, instead of just serving these 50 families a week, I'm making that number
Hmm.
up, I could serve
Yeah.
5,000 families a week. And I think that that trajectory right there and that triangulation and that conversation happens for so many of us in our own ways. So I really appreciate you sharing that and sort of offering up that model to us to get us to all think about, like, what is this in my life right now? So, what was the most exciting part of this big pivot for you? And what was the scariest part?
Let's see. The most exciting, that's a great question. Well, I knew that when I got my daughter off to college, I was going to leave the West. I'd been out West for 25 years, but I am from Maine. And so my goal was to get back to the coast. So I made it about, I don't know, halfway across.
Well
But I
done.
am closer to my family, so that's really exciting. But it was a really tiny little town, and as beautiful as that was, I felt a little stifled at times. It's Montana, it's beautiful, but there's a lot of limiting things happening in a town with no stoplights, no fast food, 2,500 people, and you're the director of nursing. So I tended to, I thought I was very much an introvert, but I realized I just really didn't want to go out in public in this small town between my ex-husband and all the family members and the county commissioners. So it was really exciting to close that chapter, sell my house and move with my daughter to our next location. And not that I don't have wonderful ties and memories. I miss the big sky and throwing my paddleboard on the roof of my car and hopping on the river or the lake, but just the opportunities and just the openness of being somewhere where there's a lot going on and places to eat and lots of other individuals who are women in business and networking and things I didn't even know existed. Believe me, it was overwhelming at first. I'm not going to say I hit the ground running when I got here. I could barely leave the house, honestly, just with the traffic and 20 lanes of traffic. I'm like, I can drive over the river and through the woods in a snowstorm, dodging deer and elk, but I cannot get on this highway right now to get to I.
It's interesting too, as we talk about brain health in a minute too. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
probably there's a real connection here between breaking out of our patterns and challenging our brain in new ways in order to keep it healthy. So for you, as you
100%.
entered this new life with all of these new challenges and all of these new perspectives, you talk about the, like, I found it hard to get out of the house. And I think that's true for many of us in these times of like massive transition. And you were transitioning every domain in your life.
Yes. Physically as well, going
Right.
through the change. So
Oh,
is
wow.
it the situation I'm in and the stress that I've been under, selling my home, getting a daughter to college, moving in with my significant other, going to a big city? Or is it physically me because I'm going through whatever is happening, losing up to 30% of your brain function can be lost during perimenopause just with the hormonal changes. So it's hard to know. I'm listening to my body. What is it saying? Or is it doesn't matter what your body would be doing. You're going through all these things regardless. So I had them all happening at once.
Oh my
I didn't know
God.
what was up and what was down for a little bit, but I am happy to say, as I've entered into what I'm officially calling menopause now, things are calming down, but also my life is calming down a little bit too. So which is it, But they're working well together. And if you are in the midst of big change, I do just have to say words of encouragement that it does get better and you will find your body again. You will learn to trust your body again. And it happens, ever so slowly with little habits and micro habits and things that we can do, but we'll get to that. But I do want to say there's hope on the other side and there's light.
Let's start with the micro habits. Let's talk about, like, what did you do personally? And then what do you recommend other people do when everything feels like I talk about this all as a tower of Lego blocks a lot. that like midlife comes along. Sometimes we choose some of the gusts of wind, but as you did, but a lot of the gusts of wind we did not choose. But regardless, the gusts of wind come.
Yeah.
And they knock over our carefully constructed Lego house. And then there are blocks all over the ground. And it's up to us then to decide, like, what do I pick up? What do I toss away? And how do I reassemble a new tower for myself that feels right for right now? So, what did that look like in the early days for you, Christine?
Well, I'd say I started with lab work. Like I did see a naturopath, and I really feel like data is important. We can throw the net wide with supplements and the next fad and biohacking. It's really easy to get information nowadays, but what information is right for you? Because I do feel the body is very individual and there's no set program for anybody. So bioindividuality is one of my main things. So finding out what's going on inside of your body to me is super relevant. And that gives you the data that you need to make some choices. So I found out my cortisol was high. That means I'm inflamed. So the stress that I'm experiencing is not just on the outside, it's on the inside too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are inflamed, then your brain is also inflamed. So it's not helping the hormonal shifts if I'm under all this stress and not doing the things that I need to do to care for myself. That, the small things that we can start by drinking a glass of water in the morning before we go to the coffee and the tea, making sure we're hydrated. The brain and the body are 70 to 75% water. So dehydration is very common, especially out west. But I actually thought when I got to Georgia, it would be different, but now it's dry here too.
And it's hot.
I'm like, what the heck? I thought I was going from like a raisin. I felt like out west, I'm going to like grow to a big, beautiful grape and be so humid and lovely. I'm like, wait, I still need lotion. Could also be part of the changes of life too.
My gosh, already
Okay,
so much I'm excited to learn from you here. So number one, this blood work, like what specifically should we be asking for?
I'm not a doctor, so my advice, honestly, as we all know, is just my advice. Everything I do is based on scientific research that I obviously gather from others and experts, but I'm really careful and thoughtful about what I share. I think like the Function Health panel is a great place to start. That's Dr. Hyman's panel. And certainly if you were seeing a doctor or a functional medicine doctor, they would help you. But for the average person, you can get that panel without a doctor's order because they are the doctors. And that checks over 100 different biomarkers in your body, like heavy metals, also all your nutrient values. Some people are taking vitamin D and vitamin B. They don't even realize that they're off the charts. They've been taking so much, and that could be leading to some of the effects that you're. Honestly, you got to know where your hormones are at before you can, treat them, whether you decide to or not. I tried the natural approach. I did end up on bioidentical hormones. And now the more brain research that I do, that estrogen is so essential for bone health and as we age. Knowing where your hormones are at and making obviously informed decisions about how you want to proceed in that, but really making sure that you're paying attention. As I mentioned, brain function, bone health, so much is around our hormonal function, and the brain is in charge of that. Like the endocrine system is quite complex. I thought about going down that route and I was like, no, that is way too complex for me to understand. But knowing those numbers will help gauge what's most important, what direction you want to start with. Also, knowing your cardiovascular health is so important. Blood pressure is essential. Having your blood pressure in control because of the damage that it can do to the brain and the cardiovascular risk that we have as women, especially entering into menopause. So knowing those numbers, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, that helps your metabolic function and also your metabolism, weight loss, all those other fun things that happen at the same time.
Wow. Yeah. So I think my takeaway from that is like get armed with data so that you have a baseline so that you can know yourself and what's changing and specifically what's going on with you. Because I think your real point is that none of this is generalizable. There are trends, there are things that lots of people experience, but each person is ultimately unique.
Yes. So knowing where you stand is a great place to start. Next on the list, I call what is kind of like base camp, really. Exercise, nutrition, cognitive health in general. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And then knowing your numbers. Scientifically, the Pointer study came out last year, and it was a long-term clinical trial. Those 4 areas done consistently and structured over time can prevent up to 50% of cognitive decline. And that's even if you have a family history or a genetic predisposition. Focusing, you know your numbers, and then lifestyle habits. We talked about micro habits. We can start small in those areas. Rome wasn't built in a day. You're going to choose one of those areas, start there. Knowing that you're doing what you can in those 4 areas creates a resilience in your body so that when the harder times come, if accidents happen, if things happen down the road, your body is much more equipped to handle them. You heal faster, you recover better, you handle stressful situations better. So when you're exercising and moving your body, when you're eating the anti-inflammatory diet, which is called actually a MIND diet. I don't know if you've heard of the MIND diet.
Tell us
It's a
about
combination. Yeah, it's a combination of the DASH diet, which is for cardiovascular health, and an anti-inflammatory or Mediterranean diet. And it's been studied for over 30 years in the scope of Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. It's eating real, I'll tell you a little more, but eating real foods basically, but it helps prevent cognitive decline as well as helps you lose weight naturally because you're eating real whole foods and giving your body what it needs to naturally balance blood sugar, lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol, and also feed your brain the nutrients that it needs to do the miraculous job that it's doing 24/7.
Wow. Wow. So really the biggest thing we can do to stimulate brain health is to just eat a certain way. And it sounds like it's like the same way our grandparents ate, that largely we know works for health and well-being.
Yes, because what's good for the brain, is honestly good for the rest of the body. So if you start with the brain, your greatest asset, the CEO of your life, controlling your mood, your actions, your thoughts, your well-being, your motion, your emotions. So if you start there and take care of what's good for the brain, the rest kind of follows. It has a trickle-down effect in the rest of the area.
I love that. That's so reassuring. It's like,
yeah.
Start with it's a very strategic approach, I think I'm hearing you say. So
Yes. Yeah.
Let's talk about memory loss and brain fog. So we assume that those are just perimenopause symptoms. Is there anything we're missing on that or that we need to know specifically related to those as perimenopause symptoms and our long-term brain health?
Sure. Well, here's the good news. The majority of the time, like 99.9% or 99% of the time, they are signals from your brain. And that means your brain is working right because it's sending you signals that it wants you to do something a little bit different. That's the getting ahead of the curve 20 or 30 years earlier, so that those signals don't become symptoms, which become potential disease in the future. So really listening to your body and knowing that your brain is really astute. It knows what's going on. And starting with the gut-brain connection, the gut is literally your second brain. Neurotransmitters are made in the gut. They talk all day long. So what you're eating, your gut is telling your brain, I like this. I'm in a good mood. I'm happy. I'm thinking clearly. I'm focused. I remember what's going on. But when your gut is not getting those signals, it can very easily be sending brain fog, memory loss, fatigue to the brain. So that's how the diet connects with that. Stress, obviously, stress can really fog things. But the good news, like I was saying, is that if you're under 65 and experiencing these symptoms, most likely it is signals, not a diagnosis or a destination.
I see. So you're saying if we're under 65, it's like, hey, pay attention to me, feed me right, lower your stress, once your hormonal and vitamin health,
yes.
all of that.
Yes.
If you're over 65, go see your doctor and talk about your Alzheimer's and dementia risk.
Give or take. I mean, it's not super definitive.
Yeah.
Yes, because the point is early onset dementia is still somewhat rare, although it is gaining more traction. But 1% of the time is it going to be early onset. So if you have a family history of dementia, or you possibly have a genetic risk factor, should you find out from a doctor in your early years in menopause? Yes, absolutely. I think, again, knowledge is power. So know what you're dealing with so that you can be even more motivated to make those changes. But for the general public, those signals from the brain are literally what your brain is picking up on in the body and asking for things to be done a little bit differently.
I love that idea of thinking of this as data. not just, like we call it a symptom, but we forget that a symptom is a result, right? And so we think like, oh, I'm just suffering from this brain fog. I'm bad, right? We internalize it as an identity that somehow we're broken or faulty and our poor brains are just gone down the tubes and we
Oh,
can't,
right.
like,
Yeah.
they're not going to function anymore. We're not going to function anymore. But really what you're saying is, oh, no, 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 friend, this is data. This is something you can listen to, learn from, and change by using that data. That just feels infinitely more empowering to me, not just for my 90-year-old self, but for my 51-year-old self.
Makes that one walk, that one healthy meal, that good night's sleep all the more relevant because your body is listening. And are you listening to what it's trying to tell you? Yeah, protecting your sleep is another great area to focus on. Honestly, that study, the Pointer study, they indicated that the next area they will be focusing on is sleep because it's so essential. And I know it's such a challenge during this point in life. If you do sleep well, you are so lucky. Take great credit for that. And if you're not sleeping well, think about how you can start to create a program for yourself that helps prioritize your sleep, because that's when the body is taking out the trash, is what I say. Especially the brain. The system in the brain, when you are resting, is when it's able to process the toxins and the chemicals and the things that are unavoidably going to happen in our lives at this day and age, right? Toxins, chemicals, pollution, these things are going to happen. But at least give your brain and your body the opportunity to do the job that it was destined to do, which is to try to get rid of everything it can when you're resting. So the 5 detox pathways work very closely together. And I think that's one of the other big things to focus on is elimination of not just eliminating it from coming in, but how do these things get out of our systems, because they are clogging. Our body has not caught up with the world. And in the past, most brains, well-functioning brains, were able to function really well until about midlife. And then there were some changes. But with the environment and plastics and processed foods and cell phones and, radiation and things that are inevitable for the life that we're living, we're in constant fight or flight. You're available all the time. You have an inbox and group messages and traffic, and there's just a lot going on. And so the body is a little less able to process all of those things that are coming in, whether it be the food, the air, the lotions, the potions, the medications, the supplements, whatever that is. So helping your body get rid of it is very essential. That's why sauna is getting so much attention.
The Goski sisters work on burnout, and they talk a lot about completing stress cycles and physically moving stressors out of our body, either through physical movement or even talking or like screaming or shaking, to actually consciously release these. And I hear a lot of that in what you're saying too. So let's talk about sleep for a second. So what are your top micro habits that can impact sleep?
Personally, it has to be cool. So I've invested in some cooling pillowcases and cooling blankets that I really love. That's just a small tip. I rely on lavender essential oil at night to go to bed, and then during the wake up period when I'm trying to get back to sleep. Magnesium is
You just
wonderful.
like lean over and sniff it?
I rub it on my wrist because it gets into your bloodstream within 10 to 15 minutes and it calms you from the inside out.
I'm totally telling my kids about
Yes.
that.
Oh, yes.
I
Elderly
sleep
and
great.
children.
My children don't.
Lucky you. Good for
Lucky
you.
me.
That's awesome. You got one thing great. You don't have to worry about that. Yes. So magnesium, there's 30 different kinds. So we could talk more specifically, but L-theanate is a great one. The wind down period, having a good AM and a good PM routine is really, really great. So getting off the screens, monitoring your blue light, darkening the house, starting to find a little peaceful routine, all very important as well. Gratitude practice is great. Start your day feeling grateful and go to bed feeling grateful. It helps train your brain to be happier, to think of what's good in your life, and that helps you rest better.
I love that. Yeah, we had a woman on just recently who suggested that you end the last conscious, intentional thing that you do each day is set an intention for yourself and really give yourself that positive affirmation. And then the first conscious thing you say to yourself upon waking is to come back to
Mhm.
that same thought. And I love that with gratitude too. This idea of like really giving our body a or giving our brains a rewiring through that repetition at these two highly habituated times. Like we wake up and we go to bed every day of our lives, basically. And so
So
if we
true.
can habituate what we do in those two, the first and the last moments, it feels like there's a real possibility there to rewire our thinking.
You're 100% right. That is neuroscience. What, 60 plus thousand thoughts a day that happen to your brain, and your brain's going to attach to whatever you think, say, do, vision. It needs some direction. It wants to do what you want it to do. But if you don't, if you're, waking up and starting scrolling or putting the news on, that's right where your brain's going to go right away. And so if you set your intention or practice gratitude when you wake up and give your brain a minute to focus on the positive things that are going to happen during your day, like today's going to be a great day. I am open for great opportunities that are coming my way, or I can handle whatever is coming my way. Your brain will start to help make that happen for you. It's the vehicle to get you to the destination.
Yeah, we get out of our own way. And I think, that there was a lot of noise a few years ago saying like our brains lose neuroplasticity as we age, which in some ways there is less neuroplasticity, but we are not frozen. Like our
Yes.
brains have neuroplasticity throughout our entire lives, we can learn. So what a load of baloney to say that a slight decline means that we should stop to reprogram our thinking.
Yeah, no. You are not stuck with the brain you have today, no matter what age you are. And that's kind of a beautiful thought, because you can start today. Yesterday, not so relevant. Today, moving forward, you can prioritize falling in love with your brain or caring for your brain. And it doesn't have to be super restrictive or all or nothing. It's really a lifestyle, a holistic lifestyle where you start to think, is this good for my brain or bad for my brain? And then you make a choice based on how you want to feel that day, what your risk factors are, what's going on in the world and your life. Yes, you should still go on vacation and enjoy yourself and have the treats. But if your base is pretty good, 80, 20, 90, 10, depending on what your goals are, then you can still enjoy life along the way. And that's the beautiful thing I think about the brain. It likes consistency, but not perfection.
I love that so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
What a reassuring thought. So, we talked a little about sleep. You mentioned water. So, I
Yes.
want to talk about beverages in general.
Okay.
So, let's talk about like, I have questions about yerba mate, coffee, alcohol,
Okay.
water. Like, what I think there's so much talk about food and what we eat, but what
Yes.
about what we drink? What impacts do those have on us?
Well, we are what we eat or drink. So literally, figuratively. And one of my fun lines is, so don't be fast, easy, cheap, or fake.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But okay. So water, I think quality of water matters.
Ah.
I really do, especially since we need to drink, 80 ounces or so a day, half your body weight or more in ounces, especially if you're sweating even more so. So I think the quality of water is very important. I think avoiding water from plastic water bottles is also quite essential. So having a water purifier, having your water tested. I carry my water bottle around with me everywhere. Not to say that the water I'm gathering is always going to be perfect, but at least I'm trying to avoid plastic as much as possible. And as far as the rest of the day, like, I'm a huge component of green tea. I think
Mhm.
green tea is excellent not only for brain health, but for metabolism and antioxidants. Organic coffee is known to be great for the brain in small doses. What happens is what people put into the coffee or the tea that causes problems. So making sure that you're not using a creamer with any artificial sweeteners or artificial ingredients. Like we said, you wake up, you have water, maybe lemon juice or chlorophyll to cleanse, and then you have your coffee or your tea. If you eat or not, that's very particular, but making sure that those beverages stay clean is very important. And then throughout the day, staying hydrated, not just waiting till you're thirsty, but drinking throughout the day
Hmm.
is very important. Staying away from sodas, of course, and juices. I do like a good green juice, but I don't do a lot of fruit juices because of the sugar content. I think that is part of what happens to the brain is too much sugar, and that can even come from fruit. So I do monitor my sugar content. I will say, I don't know if we're going to get back to the diet stuff, but berries are one of the best fruits for the brain. They're the only fruit that's proven to help prevent cognitive decline in the mind diet. You can have a small handful of blueberries, blackberries, raspberries every day. And you can also put them in your water. If you don't love water, yes, lemon, but you can even put cucumber or berries in there to give it a little flavor. Yerba mate, it's hard to find one that isn't already loaded with sugar. I love kombucha because I think that fermented foods are very important for our gut health, creating that little garden. And daily fermented foods are a great thing to include. That can be kefir, which is a drink, miso, sauerkraut, kimchi, and kombucha, which I love, but you have to look at the sugar because a lot of them have sugar. So I find the ones with low sugar. I started to chuckle because there was a time in my life where I tried to make kombucha with one of my roommates.
Mess.
If you're super into it, go for it. But creating the mothership is a challenge. I scared a couple of dates off, I'll tell you that. What is that on your counter?
I bake sourdough, so it's like a constant living creature in our house too. So
I love it. I killed the sourdough.
you know, actually you talk about water quality. When we moved, I had been using the same sourdough starter for a decade. It had survived. It was actually from Wyoming, and it had survived since the 1800s. We moved to our new house across state lines with terrible water, like disgusting water, and it killed my sourdough starter. And that's when we got a water purifier.
Absolutely.
I was like, if this is killing a being that has lived for 200 years, it's probably not safe for us.
It's probably not good. No. Oh, you did mention alcohol. I don't want to avoid that subject totally.
Yeah.
If you ask the brain health experts, they're going to say no. In the mind diet,
don't have any.
They are.
Yeah.
They're just going to say it's not good for the brain. But they say a lot of things are not good for the brain. But new research is also talking about joy span. I don't know if you've heard this term. Dr. Carrie Bernight is a gerontologist, and she wrote a book called Joy Span. And I absolutely love it. And I'm embodying it and sharing it with everyone I know, because I think especially what I saw as you get older and aging and how life can end up, so much is about attitude and how well you age is your attitude on aging. And it's not going to be easy. Nobody's going to promise you that. But with having the right attitude and enjoying your life, it can be that much more, what's the word I'm looking for, special, and still have meaning, and you still feel connected and not just focusing on the hardships. So her whole premise is that, there's so much out there about longevity and lifespan, and I don't want to live to 100 if those years are not going to be quality years. So that's your health span. I'm focusing for myself and my clients on being as healthy as we can in the years that we are here, not saying it has to be an absolute destination of 90 or 100 or something. And she says the other aspect that so many of us are missing is the joy span. And I think that's so relevant. So if a glass of wine on Friday night makes you happy, I'm not saying it's a prescription. I'm saying that, maybe you want to consider still enjoying that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just coached 2 TED speakers, and both of them talked about sort of counterintuitive beliefs around food and drink. One talked about alcohol and made the case through poetry from thousands of years of poetry that actually alcohol is providing a lot of value that is left out of the conversation around health. Like, it is a poison, and it also is something that is used for connection. So we talked about sleep, we've talked about food, we've talked about alcohol. What are we missing?
Exercise?
Well, yeah, my favorite.
Yes. Is it?
It is. No, really. Okay. I mean, I've built my whole life around it because I just want to spend at least 2 hours every morning in movement. I could not keep working at a corporate office because it did not allow for that. And it's what my brain and my body need.
That's awesome. I love it. I agree. I totally agree. It's not always time. It doesn't always allow, but that's my ultimate as well. I want to walk as well as go to yoga or do Pilates. The big thing, yes, of course, we need to do all those things. I just want it to be enjoyable for people, and find a way to invite movement into your life that you enjoy. Yes, is it going to be hard? And sometimes it's more challenging than others. And there's statistics that say when it's raining, nobody goes to the gym and they cancel their classes. Like all those are life. But in
Mhm.
general, finding ways to move your body that you love, because it is essential for life. And in our culture now, so much is sedentary. We work at our desks all day. We think we're doing such a great job. We're such hard workers, but yet we don't get up and move. And
Yeah.
I don't know, what do they say? Sitting is the new smoking.
Mhm.
You got to move throughout your day, even if it's what they call exercise snacking.
Yes. I've been trying this, and now
Yes.
that it's
Okay.
warmer and I don't have to put on a coat and boots to do it, I'm finding I'm having a lot more success.
Yeah, even just parking at the end of the parking lot far away and taking the stairs,
Mhm.
setting your timer for every hour and a half if you work at your desk, and getting up and going to get another glass of water, doing a load of laundry if you're at home, doing some squats. It's so funny. As a nurse, I was getting a lot of great steps, which I met, 16,000 steps a shift.
My
But I
gosh.
would find a corner where nobody was and, do some tricep dips on a chair, come through and see me like, what is she doing? But, anything to just get a little bit more exercise. But also when you're tired or fatigued or not functioning at your best, you've been staring at the screen for hours or you just had lunch, the best way to combat that is to move, even if it's
Yeah.
just a walk, take a call, take a walk, sit down lunch and eat light, have a juice in a bar and take a walk instead.
Yeah, that's been the thing for me. I feel like I'm like so into my 2 hours there and I love it. And then I get on my computer and I basically sit here other than to run down and make a lunch and run back up and, pee a lot because I drink so much water. But like that, it's really like biological urgency is the only reason I get out of my chair until I have to go down and make dinner. And so I feel like I've really got to focus on how to do that. And that for me was the big unlock was that drag in the afternoon. And so now I'm just really consciously not allowing coffee. And for anybody who has trouble sleeping, that's probably a good plan anyway,
Yes.
not allowing any sort of stimulant into that window to like perk me back up to help me like get more done. But I'm going and like yesterday I hula hooped and gardened for 10 minutes and I just pulled 10 minutes
I
of
love
weeds.
that.
And
Yeah.
I was
Oh
like,
my
this is
gosh,
so
so fun.
great. And I'm
I love
lucky.
that.
I had really great role models. My grandmother, as I said, she lived to 95. We literally hula hooped like 2 hours before she died. Like the day she died.
It's
And
incredible.
we were out running a couple of months before. You really physically, she was amazing. She was throwing her legs over her head in the hospital as the doctors were. I mean, like she had such unbelievable physical strength, and it's because she kept it going. And so one of her sayings that I come back to a lot was, "Well, if you never sit down, you never have to sit back up." And what she meant by that was like, if I ever stop doing this stuff, I'm pretty sure I'm never going to be able to start again. And so I wonder how you think about that in terms of these micro habits and in terms of how we take care of our bodies and our brains now, whether we are 30 or 40 or 60 or 80.
Well, Joseph Pilates, he said, you don't do Pilates to get better at Pilates, you do it to get better at life. And
Hmm.
so you do want to be able to tie your shoes. You want to be able to get yourself up off the ground if you need to and be independent. And I think
She was real
that is,
judgy of my grandmother about those people who couldn't get off the ground. She was like, that is just so undignified. They have to call an ambulance just to get up off the floor.
I know,
I mean,
but
it would
it's,
suck.
yeah, I saw it. It does. And attaching yourself to those values of why you want to age well and what you want to do and how you see yourself at 70 or 80 or 90, that helps plow past willpower. Willpower fails, right?
Yeah.
But attaching to those intrinsic values of how you want to age, that's what really gets you up off the couch. That's what gets you moving. And that vision, again, setting yourself up for that, the brain loves that. Now it knows where you're going and it's going to find ways to get you there. And I
I
think
love that.
that's,
That sounds like a really going back to our idea of how we start and end each day, thinking about our future self and how we want to live in the future in those first moments. And it's probably not going to be like, I want to be the president of Microsoft. Or maybe it is, And if it is, more power to you.
Right.
But if it's also just like, I want to be frolicking.
Yeah. I'd be swimming in the ocean, reading a book by the beach. Maybe there's some grandkids involved and some
Yeah.
travel and gardening, but maintaining my independence and my memory. I don't want to forget my beautiful life.
Mm-mm.
Holding on to that, I think, is a huge motivator.
Yeah. So if, so we're sitting here with so much great information, so many incredible ideas. If there was just one thing you could say to people to help them get started wherever they are, taking better care of themselves, what would you say?
Where do we start? It's about the mindset. Honestly, I do believe strategy is great, but 95% is about your mindset. So focusing on the gratitude and how you can shift your perspective and help your brain feel the way that you want it to feel, right? So instilling those thoughts and being intentional about those good thoughts. There might be stress, there might be hard things in your life happening, but if you shift the perspective a little bit and focus on what you are grateful for, having that positive mindset and faith. Honestly, I think faith is one of the biggest things that I've learned. So yeah, shifting your perspective and knowing that if you have faith, anything is possible.
Hmm.
And that to me is amazing. I didn't grow up with a super strong faith, had kind of a rocky childhood. And so I've been creating this mindset shift now at this point in my life where I have a chance to actually focus on myself and to understand that I'm not just surviving, that I want to be resilient and I want to thrive. And if I change the way I think, then the rest will follow.
And when you talk about faith, I assume you're talking about just belief in yourself and belief in the ability to change, as opposed to a fatalist view of our potential.
Absolutely. Just faith
You're
that
at the
what a
mercy of the world instead of being a leader in it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Just faith that it's going to work out no matter how I get there. And what
Mm.
I think, my business is going to be now, it's scary. It's scary starting out and not having income all of a sudden and focusing on a world that I know nothing about, being a wellness entrepreneur, but just having faith that I'm going to figure it out some way and knowing that the outcome is I want to help women in midlife create a brain healthy lifestyle so that they can age well and stay sharp and confident and enjoy their life and not fear aging and cognitive decline. Like that is my mission and I will get there one way or another. And that was a huge shift that I've been working on quite intently. It hasn't been easy.
So you have this mission. So you have your
Mm-hmm.
why, you have this belief
Mm-hmm.
and this faith that it is possible and that it will work out, which is, I think, one of the things that's come up a lot lately in these conversations is I've happened to talk to women who created really big, influential products or offerings in early life that they became very well known for. And I was like, let's have a conversation here between young 20-year-old you and you now, 30 years later or whatever. And over, they're like, oh my God, I was so lucky to do it when I was 20 because I had no idea what could go wrong. So I just was like, we'll figure it out. And I actually think that's like the whole big secret. And as I'm writing my book, I'm like more and more, I'm like, that's really the main thing we need to remember is that it is the experts, the expertise that we have, all the wisdom we've accrued is both a blessing and a curse, right? Because now we
Yeah.
know all the ways that could go wrong. We have all the so much life behind us that says like, oh, this is high pressure. This is important. That makes it all a lot scarier. So you are somebody who's with us in this as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's building something for herself, by herself. What are you doing to take care of your brain, your mindset, your courage as an entrepreneur in midlife?
Yes. Well, I have hired some coaches, which has been life changing, having your own coach along the way. That pointer study we spoke about, the participants that had a coach were much more successful than folks that did not, even though they had the same program and guidelines. So being coached along the way on this journey, I think is essential. And just realizing that things are much more plausible when you have somebody supporting you, helping you, guiding you, being your accountability partner. Also, your cheerleader, your confidant. it makes those challenges a whole lot easier. Some of the brain work, I used to think that just meditation would work, but that wasn't working. It was great. It's an important practice, but that wasn't changing my mindset. And that's what I realized. I had some hurdles that I need to work through. EFT tapping was really quite monumental in my journey for changing my mindset. You can kind of beat your head against the wall, like I want to change, but it's not happening. So you kind of have to get deep in there into your subconscious.
For those of you listening, I'll be sure to share in the show notes an episode we did a while back on EFT tapping so that you can learn a little bit more about that.
Yes. I did go to business school. Soul Business Accelerator was an amazing business school specifically for coaches. So learning the process has been really helpful. Having that knowledge and not just throwing the net wide and going down rabbit after rabbit hole, trying to figure these things out on my own. So having that structure has been essential because that's allowed me to focus on content and things like that. Honestly, I'm a Pilates instructor, but I switched to hot yoga when I moved to Atlanta because there's so many classes. And I've really found for my brain at this point in my life, it's been a huge learning curve. It's been great for my brain, but it's hitting so many different factors for my overall health and wellness and well-being and mindset. It's learning something new, which is great for the brain. It's a mind-body connection. It's breath work. I'm getting upside down. I'm helping with blood flow. I'm remembering my right from my left, which sometimes seems confusing in the moment. So challenging your brain to do something new. We talked about micro habits, but that cognition part is about staying social and staying engaged and finding things that are meaningful to you, but also learning new things. If you just keep doing the same thing that you're good at, yes, you're active, but it's not challenging your brain. So your brain needs to be challenged, whether it's art, a class, music, pickleball, like learn how to play paddle tennis or tennis, that hand-eye coordination is great. So that's what I'm doing. I'm playing ping pong.
Wow, fun. So as uplifters, our favorite thing to do is to uplift other uplifters. How can we support you in whatever your next big goals and ambitions are?
Yeah, getting the word out is amazing. I have some free resources. I have a weekly newsletter and I do a monthly brain boost. It's a live virtual event that is free the first Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. Eastern. And it's also recorded if you can't attend live. So we do one topic, we do a quick meditation, we do a little reflection, little information, and then you're off and running. So I love my free brain boost sessions. And my website is The Wellness Navigator. I have an awesome quiz, Why Does Everything Feel Harder After 40, which is available on my website, which is a great place to start. And then I offer a 4-month coaching program for women. It's 8 sessions, and we use brain health science to help you navigate your health and wellness goals and set you up with a blueprint that's individual and personal and just for you so that you can age well and enjoy your life.
Oh, that's so wonderful. So wonderful. What a great offering. And I love that it's so tailored to the midlife woman.
Yes.
And really just such incredible offerings. And I can't wait to go check them all out because like I said, I fully expect every woman in my family has lived until their 90s and they've lived mostly alone and have been really physically independent. But my grandmother also struggled with her brain health toward the end and things were confusing. And I think, a lot of it was that the less autonomy she had, the more she felt like she was expected to be dependent on other people, the less she was dependent on herself. But she was amazing. So I plan on just following in her footsteps as much as I can and drinking more water. She never drank enough water. She was always dehydrated. I really think she probably would have lived another 5 years, 10 years.
Wow.
Had she been able to focus on hydration, but she was terrible at it because she would just get so focused in her work too. She would be outside in the Texas heat for hours and hours and hours. And you'd be like, Grandma, you're going to faint.
Right.
But also you're amazing. So what am I telling you? So every guest on the show nominates another guest. Who would you like to nominate?
Okay. I would love to nominate Karen Silverman. She's a fellow nurse and coach, and she's helping people in the healthcare profession work through their burnout and their trauma and what they've experienced. She's an ER nurse. She's in midlife and creating this amazing coaching business to support healthcare workers. It all has to do with reviving and rejuvenating and regaining your rebel instincts, but I think that healthcare workers, especially during these days and times, need that extra love and support and encouragement to keep going, because healthcare is it's a tough field. It wears on you personally and professionally. And so any support we can give to other nurses and anyone in the healthcare field, I think is very essential for our future, because who's going to take care of us if we don't have enough nurses and CNAs and lab techs? And
so great. And I also just love this image of our reconnecting to our rebel instincts. I'm like, I want more of that, please. Christine,
great.
Thank you so much for all
you.
that you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all these incredible tips and ideas. I'm going to go practice now and just see what sticks, because to your point, we're not going to do it all. We're going to find that balance for ourselves. And I don't want to go through life shitting on myself, but I also want to keep growing. So this is packed with fun ideas for that. Maybe lemon water will be my new thing. I don't do that. For those of you listening, if this resonated with you, here are some ways that you can go deeper. Certainly go and subscribe to the Wellness Navigator. Check out some of the wonderful programs that Christine has there. But then also subscribe to our Substack. It's over on the uplifterspodcast.com. We share weekly stories and practices from the women you hear on this show, as well as from my own work, interviewing over 200 women about how to do big, brave things. And to Christine's point about coaching, it makes a huge difference. We should not have to go through everything alone. I always say, nobody learned how to play the piano alone, right? You got a piano teacher, because there were ways to do piano that were easier and more effective. And we owe it to ourselves to get a little support. And I think in midlife, we need it more than ever because of the complexity of the changes that we are experiencing. So if you are looking for support with your brain health and well-being, reach out to Christine for coaching. And if you're looking for support with growing your big, brave thing and stepping into your leadership more fully in your life and in your work, reach out to me. I'd be honored and delighted to talk to you about my offerings. I'll see you over at theuplifterspodcast.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the Uplifters podcast. If this inspired you, hit subscribe and tap the bell to stay uplifted. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs a little lift today. Big love.
Painted water sunshine with rosemary and thyme. Dwell in the perplexing, though you find it vexing. Toss a star and hover, be your own best lover. Relish in a new prime, plant a tree in springtime. Dance with idle hindsight, bring the sun to twilight.